Hello, and how's it going today? We're going to take a look at the subs. I hear a lot of Discord chatter frequently. Does a sub do this? Does a sub stop that? Etc. 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 And I figured I'd just make a video hitting as many subtopics as I can think of. Um, Relatively basic stuff, but it's good, especially when interpreting the rules. So this is kind of an off-the-cuff video. So if I forget anything, I do apologize now. Like most things, again, I've got tons of random hot seat games I got going of me just setting up situations and seeing, does this affect that? Does this affect this? What's this rule? How's this implemented? And so I always recommend if you had a question on a rule, simulate it, create it. So, in any case, we're going to go to this setup that I got going here. And we're going to take a look at German combat term. Now, obviously, this is a crazy setup. Don't worry about the actual strategy of all this. This is just to demonstrate what subs do and don't do. So it's Germany turn. So the first question, we got a Russian sub here in C Zone 6. And I got a transport and say I want to take Iceland. Can I take the transport by itself across and attack Iceland? So I'll load up my guy. And yes, you'll notice I can go over a sub without any escorts and end in a zone that does not have a sub and attack with an amphibious assault. So the sub does not block me from moving that way. There's no errors, everything good. That's a good move. What about if I wanted to assault UK? I wanted to do a sea lion, so I'm going to be ending in the zone that the enemy sub is in. And I go in and I go for the attack, and you notice I start getting the error message, and it says I need to add naval support to the transport in order to do this. So what counts as naval support? Do I have to have a destroyer? Well, Germany doesn't have any destroyers, so no, it doesn't have to be a destroyer. So we can move the cruiser, and it makes it happy because the cruiser will be battling the sub. It does not matter if the Russians have their subs set to submerge or not, because we're talking about a move before combat, so we don't know if they're submerging or not. So it doesn't matter if they use submerge or not. Now we could go into the battle and they submerge right away, and then the amphibious assault goes on, and the cruiser and sub will both just sit there. So does it have to be a surface ship? Could I use another sub to escort? Because there's my blinker again. What if I use a sub? Same thing. A sub works. It just has to be a warship. It does not have to be a surface warship in this particular case. It can just be a warship to escort the transport to carry out the amphibious assault. So that's doing amphibious assaults and how the subs affect that movement. What about some just general situations of subs attacking? So if I wanted to get to these transports, yes, a destroyer does block a sub from being able to go through a sea zone, so I cannot attack these transports. Other Navy ships do not prevent that, so they've got a transport up here, and I want to go, and I could go under the carrier and attack that transport to sink it. And so that is a perfectly valid move in that regards, because there's no destroyer in this zone stopping me from going to Sea Zone 2. Now, another question that comes up a lot of times, and we're just going to go ahead and do a battle, is what happens when subs alone are attacking a space, and if they kill the carrier, yet there's still fighters there? What happens in this situation to the transport? What happens to the fighters? So we're going to pull him back, and we're just going to make sure that we can hopefully win without any Dice Gods moments in here, and let those subs win here. You know what? I do want to leave one of these subs back, though. Actually, now that I think about it. There we go. Alright. Come on, subs. Do your thing. So I'm going to be on, I'm not really talking about submerging the subs or not in a battle. Of course, yeah, I could submerge the subs since they don't have a destroyer present. So here's the thing. I killed the carrier, and now the fighters are still going to roll. Why? They can't hit, so invalid hits. There's no destroyer present for them to hit. So now I get an automatic kill on the transports because the fighters can't stop me. So it destroys the transports. Now I got 3 subs and 2 fighters living. So now there's the 2 fighters. You say they were gone. The fighters controlled by UK stranded in Sea Zone 9 crashed because there was no safe landing zone for them. They crashed. So that killed the carrier, the fighters, and the transport. Now fighters can move 1 spot when they've been hit to try and land. So if there was a land immediately adjacent, they could land on the land, or if there was a carrier sitting 8 or 10, it could move 1 spot to land. In this case, there was no safe landing zones and 1 movement for the fighter. So now we go to non-combat move. So let's go back to this transport and this sub. So say I want to use my transport again to go over the sub and drop it. I can do that. There's no error with that. So it is fine to move through the zone in non-combat as well as in combat move. The sub does not stop you there. What if, can I stop? Can I do a non-combat move where I end in a zone with the sub unescorted and drop off? Lo and behold, I can do it. So unlike combat, where I need to have an escort to drop units into an enemy territory, I can non-combat into a space with the sub and drop it into friendly territory. And I think there's one more scenario I just want to go through here real quick. Alright, so I fast forward the video a little bit here, jumped ahead, I had to simulate through and move my UK transport up here since I sunk the other transport. So the question is, does a sub prevent bombardment by a cruiser and battleship? So here we go, we're going to take the UK sub, we're going to come on down here to Morocco, and of course we got our flashing symbol. We cannot do that without a warship present, so we got to bring our battleship. Now notice I selected my battleship there and it's gone. So what if I bring my cruiser instead? And so there's no option to bombard Morocco. But that's not the end of the story. So the thing that can happen is you can click the disengage in Sea Zone 13, and now I reselect my battleship and look, and my cruiser, I can bombard. So they're escorting into the zone, and yet I can still go ahead and bombard on Morocco. So just an interesting trick. Sometimes it took me a while to realize that. I've gone before where I just thought the sub blocked it as well, but the sub does not block bombardments, unlike using a destroyer where you've got to engage it. So interesting little tidbit there, but I just wanted to share that as well. I hope this was helpful, and we'll be sending out more short videos as we go along.